I never complained. Not when they called me just a mechanic. Not when my shirt was soaked in oil and my hands were so rough I could barely feel my own skin. I just wiped the sweat off my brow, fixed the car, and went home. That little garage of mine, barely enough space for 2 cars and a busted vending machine, it wasn't much. But to me, it was freedom. A place where no one judged me, where my work spoke louder than my last name or my bank account. When I married Amanda, I knew I was marrying into a different world. She came from money, real money, private schools, champagne brunches, the kind of family that wore designer clothes to casual dinners. And me, I was the guy who showed up in boots and grease-stained jeans, the guy they never really looked at unless it was to look down on. Sunday dinners were the worst. Her father would talk politics and Wall Street like I wasn't even there. Her brother bragged about bonuses, overseas deals, stuff I couldn't care less about. And her mother, she never even said my name. One night, Amanda finally said what they were all thinking. "You're a good man, Joan, but you'll never be one of us." That one hurt, not because I needed their approval, but because I thought, maybe if I worked hard enough, stayed humble enough, they'd see me for who I really was. But I was wrong. Respect never came, only silence, and behind-the-back whispers. I told myself I could live with that, but I didn't know then that soon they'd do something I couldn't forgive, something that would break me and force me to rebuild from nothing. It started with a phone call. Amanda's father asked me to come by the house, said it was important. I thought maybe, just maybe, they were finally ready to accept me. Maybe they saw how hard I'd been working. Maybe they wanted to apologize. But when I walked in, the air felt different, cold, still, like a storm waiting to hit. They were all there. Her parents, her brother, even Amanda. I barely got a word out before her father slammed a drawer shut and tossed a ledger onto the table. "Money is missing. Thousands. And your name's the only one on the log." I blinked, confused. At first I thought it was a mistake, a joke even. But no one was laughing. Amanda just stood there, eyes down, arms crossed. Not a word. I told them I didn't take anything. I told them I'd never steal, that I'd never risk our marriage like that I loved her, that I loved them despite everything. Her father didn't even blink. Love doesn't pay back what's missing. And Amanda? I don't know what to believe anymore, Joan. Those words hit harder than anything. Not because they accused me, but because she didn't defend me. She didn't know what to believe. I left that house with nothing. No job, no wife, no dignity. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly broken. I didn't go home that night. Didn't even drive back to the garage. I just sat in my car watching the rain slide down the windshield. Over and over I asked myself, what did I ever do to deserve this? I didn't have the answer then. But I was about to find out that when life burns you to ashes, you either stay down or you rise. A few weeks passed. I tried to keep busy, picked up shifts at a different garage across town. Didn't say much to anyone, just fixed what was broken, including myself. Or at least I tried. Then, one afternoon, I stayed late at the shop. Another mechanic forgot his phone, so I went to drop it off. He lived above the garage, right near where Amanda used to go for yoga on Thursdays. I pulled into the alley, and there it was, her car, and his, parked side by side. The lights were off, but the curtains were open just enough for me to see what I needed to see. She wasn't just done with me, she had moved on, with him. The owner of the garage, my boss. The same guy who once asked me to clean out the bathrooms because, and I quote, "You're used to dirt, right?" I stood there in the dark, hands shaking. I didn't say a word, didn't knock, didn't confront them. I just turned around, got in my car, and drove. I didn't cry, not then. That came later. The next day at work, he smirked at me, like he knew I knew. He called me into the office, offered me time off. "You look tired, Joan. Maybe this isn't the place for you anymore." Then he laughed like he owned everything. Like I was nothing. I didn't argue, didn't beg. I just left. That was the day I hit bottom. Everything I built, everything I believed in, gone. I was the joke, the guy who lost his job, his wife, and his pride, all in the same season. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the man they kicked into the dirt, he was about to rise. And when I did, I wouldn't just rebuild my life. I'd rewrite the ending. I left town that night. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just needed to drive, put some distance between me and everything I thought was home. I ended up 3 states away somewhere, in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place with more cows than people. It was late, maybe past midnight. I was heading toward a cheap roadside motel when I saw it. Headlights swerving fast. A sleek black car skidded off the road and slammed into a ditch, smoke pouring from the hood. I slammed on the brakes. Didn't think, just reacted. Jumped out, ran through the mud. The door was jammed. The window cracked. Inside, a teenage girl, barely conscious, bleeding from her forehead. I shouted, kicked the door. It wouldn't budge, so I grabbed a tire iron from my trunk and broke the glass. Pulled her out just before the front caught fire. When the paramedics came, they asked if I was her father. I shook my head. I didn't even know her name. They said I saved her life. I didn't think much of it until the next morning. That's when he showed up. Tall, gray hair, sharp suit, but his eyes, they were soft, grateful. He introduced himself. His name was William Carrington. The name sounded familiar, but it didn't register at first, until I saw the news later that night. He wasn't just anybody. He was the William Carrington, CEO of the biggest logistics empire in North America. Billionaire, powerhouse, and I had just saved his daughter. He took me out to breakfast the next day. Didn't ask many questions, just listened. Then he looked me in the eye and said, "You could have driven past, but you didn't. That means something. I want to help you, not charity, just a new start." And just like that, the man I used to be got his second chance. He gave me a check, no strings attached. Enough to buy equipment, lease a small garage, and cover 3 months of operating costs. I stared at it for a long time. It felt heavier than paper, like a test. Like the universe whispering, "What will you do with it?" So I made a promise. Not to William Carrington, not even to Amanda, but to myself. I would build something no one could take away from me again. Something that ran on integrity. Not money or status. Something real. I found a small town that needed mechanics. A place where no one knew my name and no one cared what I used to be. And I got to work. I fixed cars, changed oil, towed broken engines in the middle of the night. Did everything myself for the first 6 months. No days off, no fancy office, just me, a few tools, and a single sign on the door. Jones Auto. Honest work, no bull. People started coming. First 1, then 5, then 10. They liked that I looked them in the eye. That I explained what was broken instead of selling what wasn't. They came for the service. They stayed for the trust. I hired 1 mechanic, then 2, then bought the building next door. Word spread. Within 2 years, I had garages in 5 cities. By year 3, 15. And every one of them bore my name. Not because I wanted fame, but because I wanted every person who had ever been looked down on to walk into my shop and feel like someone finally respected them. Jones Auto wasn't just a business. It was a statement, a reminder that you don't need a fancy name or a rich family to build something that matters. You just need grit and a reason to get back up when life knocks you down. 3 years later, I drove back into the same town that once spit me out. Same streets, same old diners, same cracked sidewalks. But I wasn't the same man. This time, I wasn't returning with my head down. I came back with a name. Jones Auto. Now one of the largest and most trusted garage chains in the country. And I didn't just open another location. I built the biggest, cleanest, most advanced garage that town had ever seen, right in the heart of downtown. Right across the street from the very shop where my ex-wife and her boyfriend used to work. Yeah, I made sure of that. From the minute we opened, customers flooded in. They'd heard of our reputation, our service, our integrity, and more importantly, they were tired of being lied to by the other guys. The old garage couldn't compete. Their phones stopped ringing. Their waiting room sat empty. They tried discounts, flashy ads, but the damage was already done. That's the thing about reputation. Once you lose trust, you don't get it back with coupons. I didn't say anything, didn't make a scene, didn't even look their way when I passed them on the street. Because this wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about something else. Presence. Letting them feel my success without needing to speak a word. It was quiet, but it was loud enough to shake their world. And I thought that would be enough. Until fate handed me one more unexpected twist. One more moment. That would change everything. Because on a random Tuesday afternoon while driving back from a site visit, I had a minor fender bender. Nothing serious, just a bump. But when I stepped out of my car, I came face to face with a ghost I thought I'd buried years ago. Amanda. And her new man. I got out of the car slowly. Checked for damage, nothing major. Just a dent. I was about to offer help, maybe even apologize when I saw her. Amanda. Hair different. Eyes colder. But I'd recognize that voice anywhere. And standing next to her, him. The same smug look. The same arrogant posture, her new man, the guy who took everything from me and laughed while doing it. Funny how life works. Before I could say a word, she started in on me. Are you blind? Do you even know how to drive? I kept calm, didn't say who I was, didn't let it show that I knew exactly who they were. He stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. Looks like you're still wrecking things, huh, grease monkey? They didn't recognize me. Not with the new suit, the clean cut, the car that cost more than their house. I smiled. Why don't I have my garage take care of the repairs? It's just down the street. Amanda rolled her eyes. Oh God, no. We're not letting some back alley mechanic touch our car. He smirked. Yeah, you probably work at one of those pop-up shops. Just give us the cash. I handed them a card. Bring it by. Ask for Joan. They took it without looking. And that was that. They walked off, still talking down to me, still thinking I was beneath them. But they were about to walk straight into my world, into my shop. And this time, they wouldn't be the ones writing the rules. The next day, they showed up at Joan's Auto, and their jaws dropped the second they realized whose name was on the sign. They walked into the garage like they owned the place. Chins high, voices loud. Amanda still wearing that look like the world owed her something. She scanned the lobby, clearly impressed. Leather seats, espresso machine, clients in tailored suits and business casual. Not exactly what they expected. He leaned over the front desk. We're here about a dent. Some idiot rear-ended us. Said we could get it fixed here. The receptionist, Maria, glanced at me through the office window. I gave her a slight nod. Oh yes, Mr. Joan is expecting you. He laughed. Wow, you guys name your techs Mr. now. Then I stepped out. Polished shoes, tie sharp, calm. Amanda blinked. Twice. Then her mouth dropped. Joan? I nodded. Welcome to my shop. He didn't get it at first. Wait, this is your shop. I let the silence answer him. Watched his smile fall. They both looked around. The logo, the banners, the wall of awards. Everywhere they turned, it was my name. Joan's Auto. Don't worry. We'll fix your car. I'll even give you a discount. They didn't know whether to be embarrassed or furious, but I wasn't there to argue, wasn't there to rub it in. Success speaks louder than revenge ever could. I handed them the invoice, shook his hand like a businessman. Not a boy begging for approval. They left quietly. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out the same way they walked out of my life years ago. But this time, I held the door. They thought they'd buried me. But I wasn't gone. I was just getting started. I could have stopped there. The look on their faces, the silence that followed. That was enough for some, but not for me, because there was one last thing tying me to that family. One piece of the past still lingering like a stain on a clean shirt. The house. The one Amanda and her parents lived in. The one I had helped renovate when we first got married. They kicked me out without hesitation. Now, years later, their fortunes had flipped. The old garage was dying. Debts piled up. Amanda's boyfriend, had started borrowing against their assets, and in a last desperate move, he mortgaged the house to cover business losses. I heard about the listing through my realtor. They didn't know who the buyer was. I didn't need to haggle. I paid in full, cash. The closing happened fast, clean, quiet. They didn't even know they'd sold it to me. I came to collect what was legally mine. Amanda's father opened the door, his expression annoyed, then confused. "Can I help you?" I held out the deed. "Actually, I believe I own this house now." Silence. He took the papers, scanned the name. And then, his face turned white. Amanda appeared behind him. "No, no, this can't be real." Her mother dropped to the floor, sobbing. Her father staggered back, hand on the wall. Then came the pleading, the shouting, the blame. They turned on the boyfriend, called him a fool, a liar, a curse. He stuttered, tried to talk his way out of it, but it was too late. I didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't mock them. I just said, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for closure. This house is mine now. I suggest you pack." Amanda dropped to her knees. "Please, don't do this. Don't leave us like this." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Not when Amanda called my name. Not when her mother cried. Not when her father begged me to reconsider. Because that part of my life was over. I didn't need revenge. I had peace. And when you've walked through hell and built your own heaven, that's enough. Today I live in a glass-walled apartment at the top of the city. It's quiet up here. Still, I can see for miles. Sometimes I sip coffee on the balcony and watch the skyline light up like fire. And beside me is her, Sophia, the girl I pulled from that burning car. Now a woman, graceful, brilliant, kind, and my fiancé. She doesn't love me for what I own. She loves me for what I survived, and what I became. Amanda. She lives with her parents now in a cramped one-bedroom rental on the edge of town. They rely on welfare checks and small favors. Her boyfriend long gone, left when the money did. I don't take pleasure in their suffering. I don't check in. I don't follow their story. But every now and then someone sends me a photo. Amanda at the grocery store looking tired. Her father at a bus stop. They had everything, but they didn't know what to do with it. I was the one they said would never make it. The one they mocked, pushed out, left behind. But here's the thing. When you bet against a man with nothing left to lose, you better pray he never finds a reason to rise. Because once he does, he'll build an empire. And he'll do it in silence. One wrench, one scar, one brick at a time. They had the life they thought I wanted. But I built the one they never imagined I could.